Alright, we've made it to the finale of the 2019 Spring LCS Preview Series. We got tier lists for you and our final thoughts going into what's going to be such a hype Spring 2019 season, and I'm looking forward to it. Of course, if you like these videos, please consider following me on the different social media stuff. That does help me as I'm trying to become a professional showcaster and speaking, and you can hear me speak more and say more words, and then I'll enjoy that. But enough of that, let's get on with the video. There's some spicy stuff in here. There's some spicy picks that I think Globas is a little spicier than me, so hope you enjoy. So, to cap off this whole thing, we're going to place where we think teams are going to go. Not necessarily like exactly trying to fit them in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, but where we have three different spots rather, who we think are going to finish in the top 2, so the top 2 teams, the rest of the playoff teams, so that would be 4 teams that would round out the top 6, and then kind of throw everyone else in this rest of the league. Even though it's a little bit unfair to some of these teams now that I'm like kind of thinking about my list here. But how should we do this? How do you want to do? Do you want to do like your top 2 and then my top 2 and then talk about that a little bit?
I'll go bottom to top.
Let's do want to do bottom top? Okay, so especially since I think that they'll potentially have the most variance too. So on the bottom, and I struggle with this as like you were, I was like literally making this list as we were talking about Team Liquid too.
Same.
I have.
Well, I made it earlier.
Right, yeah, but I was kind of finalizing the list because now it has to be out there. Anyway. My bottom is FlyQuest, Echo Fox, Clutch Gaming, and Optic.
Yeah, I can see that. I have 3 of the same 4.
So who do you have in the playoffs that I don't?
Here's the thing. I really struggle because if you were to look at my screen right now, I have the top 2, I have a middle 5, and I have the bottom 3. I have Optic, Clutch, and FlyQuest, and because I think that like those 3 teams, it's hard to see a world where they like surpass a lot of these middle 5. Mm-hmm. Like with the only question mark being like the FlyQuest like flash in the pan.
Yeah, like, I've actually had trouble putting FlyQuest in here on who I like wanted to kick out of the playoffs to make this work. But anyway, keep going with your point.
I want to say though that like I want to pause here and say I actually think this is such a nice split, and that I feel like a lot of these teams are great. Like I don't feel like there's a lot of like easy not out of playoff teams. Mm-hmm. As much as we agree, it's so weird to say like, well, we agree, so obviously they're easy, but it's like I think that like the lower tier of this split are better than the lower tier of a lot of previous years.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then Optic is just because of the language issues, and FlyQuest, or sorry, and Clutch because I think that Piglet Lyra is just weird.
Yeah, and like I put FlyQuest on the bottom, and I had trouble doing it because, and it's mostly because Pobelter, who consistently ends up being somehow on the best team, right? Like he consistently is always somehow on the, at least regular season splits and stuff like that. Maybe not international, but he's always consistently a playoff player. And he kind of, I'm not saying it's always because of him, but there's a reason teams put him on the team because they think he's good enough to play on a team that could be a top team. So it's crazy. The rest of them, like again, Echo Fox and Clutch Gaming just have too many question marks for me to. Again, this is more of a if I had to put money down on it, I would not put them in the playoffs. And again, I was talking about earlier, Clutch. I was like, I'm putting Clutch at the last place, like fighting for last place. And then Optic, even though I think is super interesting, Crown is on his team. I'm putting a former world champion on the bottom of the league potentially. Like it's insane, right? So like you're saying, I think our bottom of the league is so good, and I'm putting some crazy players in my brain to potentially be in the bottom to fill out this bottom spot. So that being said,
I'm having real struggle here. I'll be honest with you, I'm really struggling, and I think because I will tell you right now, it's not Echo Fox is my 4th. Like for sure, it's not Echo Fox. I have one of 2 other teams, and I'm not sure which to say, and I'm gonna be flamed no matter which one I say. So I'm going to come out and say it, and it's going to kill me. I'm going to say Cloud9. I think Cloud9 will not make playoffs in spring.
Oh.
And yeah, I know. And the reason is because I actually have a lot more faith in the consistent level of Echo Fox. Because and the other team, just so you know, was CLG. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because I think that the consistent level, like the bare minimum level of like CLG and Echo Fox is higher than the bare minimum Cloud9. I think Cloud9 is, like I said, the widest variance team. And I think there's a chance we're wrong and they beat Team Liquid and they're the best team in NA. I think there's a chance that they're the worst team in NA. I don't know.
That's crazy.
And I think that because Cloud9 had such a rough year. I don't think like as much as like you kind of said. I don't think they like walked their way into second. I think they earned it hard.
Right.
And I think they proved that with their Worlds performance. But I do think there's a very likely chance that they suck in spring and then they show up going into like they fix their problems going towards the end of the year and then somehow win the gauntlet with some lottery win and then they get to Worlds.
Like they do every year.
They do every year. But I see them not making
playoffs in spring.
Not making playoffs.
Okay.
So that's going to be my risque prediction.
Okay, so in my playoff teams that aren't in the top 2, I still have Team Solo Mid, Counter Logic Gaming, Cloud9, and Golden Guardians. Probably the most spicy in there. Maybe Golden Guardians is pretty spicy because, again, they were last place. But again, I feel like there's no way they're a last place team anymore. And I guess compared to your list, Cloud9 is spicy because they're not in this part of your list for you. But who rounds out your top 6 before the top 2?
It's very close. Like we're the same in the TSM, the Counter Logic Gaming, the Golden Guardians, and then I have Echo Fox.
Oh, Echo Fox wasn't in your top 2.
Oh, you thought I had Echo Fox?
Yeah, I thought for sure that's what you were doing.
No, that would have been really spicy. No, no, I don't see that kind of upside with some of these rosters. I do see like it's weird to say that like. I don't know where this plays out, kind of like you said. But I actually, of these 4 teams, I think that TSM and Golden Guardians are the better of the 4.
Yeah.
Because TSM just like it's really hard to downplay Bjergsen and Sven, and Golden Guardians added like some of the better points of other teams in Hanser and Ole. And I actually am a huge fan of Froggen, so I think there's a huge upside.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like for me. The Froggen actually ends up being the biggest question mark on that team for me, because again he had such poor success on Echo Fox, but that might have been just because his Echo Fox teams were really bad. I think like if you compare Golden Guardians with Froggen versus Echo Fox with Froggen, you're like, oh yeah, this team would smack the crap out of that team. So I feel like he's actually on a good team this time in the second run into NA for him, and he can. Sit there and farm and let his rest of his team do stuff. Like, Hanser's gonna smack kids in the top lanes, bot lane's gonna smack everyone. Contracts, he can counter jungle with the best of them. Like, this team is gonna, like, there's gonna be so much that Froggen can actually just do the whole sit there and farm thing while the rest of his team is getting resources for themselves, too.
Right.
So, and that has been historically Froggen's problem is that like he just hogs all these resources and no one else gets them. The rest of the team are just gonna get their own resources. So Golden Guardians, yeah, this team could spike and be a top 2 team. But at the very least, we both have them in the playoffs, and I think they're gonna be pretty darn good.
I want to talk about like my biggest dark horse of probably this whole aside from the Cloud9 variants.
Yeah.
I think the biggest dark horse for me is CLG. Because I do have them as a lower playoff team, but like I am pretty hyped about this roster. But it's one of those things where I just don't know like if they're gonna be that top side, because the top side of the map and Darshan Wiggly kind of has a question mark for me.
Yeah.
The power reveal sticks they Biofrost have is really exciting for me. And also kind of the coaching staff in Weldon Irene. I don't know if that's enough to push them into a top 2 team, or even a top 4 team. But I am kind of excited to see this team, and I do think they're playoff at bare minimum. I just don't know if this team's going to make top 2, and it's hard to say that they would be top 2 or top 4 when a lot of these other rosters are just huge powerhouses on all 5 players, rather than what I feel like is the 3 on CLG.
Yeah, for me, like if we're talking dark horse teams, I'm looking at FlyQuest, and right now I'm flirting with Counter Logic Gaming and FlyQuest fighting for that last playoff spot. Like if I want to specifically place them. That's kind of like how I potentially see that. So it's super interesting to me how this team's going to do. Because again, it is really hard for me to place a team that has Pobelter on it outside of the playoffs. Because it just kind of goes against historical things that have happened. So it'll be really interesting. But talk a little bit more about your Echo Fox pick being here. You still keep them as a playoff team.
Yeah, I kind of stand by what I said, where I feel like this is a very aggressive team, and I see a lot of playmaking potential. And I think a lot of it's that I just have a lot of faith in. Like, I think that this team is comparable to the Immortals roster that he did really well with.
Right.
You know, like maybe not comparable in that they're like similar players. I don't think Rush is comparable to Xmithy. I don't think that you know, Phoenix is comparable to Pobelter. But I do think that it's a similar skill level team, and I think that Song can really build something with this. Like Apollo Haku, I think are a solid team. They had a bad split, but this is also the same bot lane that took down Sven Myth. Like, so
Yeah.
they have huge potential. I think that it's great, actually, they have Solo and Lorlo, because I have trouble arguing over who's better, because Lorlo has had some real high highs, and then kind of flirted with some bad times on Golden Guardians, and Solo is a player that I think has huge potential, just because I think that, like, he was given the real short end of the stick with Lyra as his jungler and was really kind of abandoned in the top lane. And I think that with Rush, he might be given a little bit more resources, or at least more attention, which I think will be huge. And Phoenix is another player that I think that, you know, has had moments of brilliance and also moments of like meh, but this is a team that I see how the pieces fit together. Like I see the Rush Phoenix fitting together really well. I see Rush and either Solo Lolo fitting well, and then Apollo Hackle, which is kind of like a consistent yes for me. Like I don't see a weak point on this team that I see in some of the other rosters. Like whereas like at this team, if I were to say like if I can make a score out of 10, they're like the solid 6. Like they're just there no matter what. Like they've got that kind of strength to them that it's like I don't see them doing worse than that. And there's the potential that everything just fits together and they do great.
Yeah.
Because I don't see a strong weak point.
There's that, but then like if I just like head-to-head Echo Fox and Cloud9, I think Cloud9 wins. And that's basically the trade where you and I are making here, is me keeping Cloud9 in a playoff spot and you being Echo Fox out of that. But then again, that is just a head-to-head, and again, it's just like how they're going to do against the rest of the league. Who knows? That makes that all intriguing.
I will say I actually do partially agree with you, because I do say Apollo Hackle probably loses to Sneaky Zazel, and Solo and or Lorlo probably lose to Licorice, and then the jungle mid is kind of where it evens out.
Yeah.
I will argue this though. I do think that we saw those same players in Cloud9, like we said, do 10th place, and that's where it really sticks to me that Echo Fox has a better chance, because I do see a team like Cloud9 having a day where they beat TSM and then lose to Optic. Whereas Echo Fox is a team that's like, oh, I could see this being like Clutch last year did so well because they constantly beat teams below them in the standing. And I see Echo Fox doing that. Like I don't see Echo Fox losing to these bottom tier teams. And I see them potentially taking a few games off some of the top tier teams.
Yeah,
so
and that would be all they needed to do to make the playoffs. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So that leaves our top two a little bit boring. Means we both say Team Liquid and 100 Thieves in there. So let's I guess make it a little more interesting. Who do you think is the better team between those two?
I mean it's hard to say that Team Liquid is not the top. Like I don't see how this team is not the best team in NA. That being said, I think that I don't think if they don't make top 2 in regular standings will I be upset. I don't think I will be, because I like with any team, no matter how like stacked the roster is, there's a world where there's like that gel problem. Like we've seen historically TSM do that, where they do terrible when it comes to standings. We've seen them finish 6th in regular season standings, but then win the whole
especially
split.
With best of ones, right?
Yeah, and that's why there's this kind of like, okay, well they could finish kind of anywhere, but this is a team that if they don't finish top 2, that's a huge disappointment. Like you said, like 100 Thieves, I think if they finish top 6, they're still kind of happy. Like I think they'll always aim for better, and they should. But I think that Team Liquid is just it's hard to see a roster that invested this much time and money and this much like I just don't see any player on the roster that's not top 2 or top 1. Like I just have trouble seeing a world where they don't win playoffs. 100 Thieves is a team that I think made a real statement. Like last year, I still kind of feel like they didn't deserve the placement they got. Like I feel like they kind of lucked into some of their placements and lucked into worlds. But I feel like this is a improvement where it's like this team, if they place top 2, if they finish first, if they finish second or third consistently and then make worlds up based on that, I think they've earned it, because I think that this is a roster that has huge upside, and I think that it's hard to see either of these two teams out of top.
Yeah, for sure. I have them both sitting there as well, and then like I would say if I'm gonna pick a number 1 team, I still would pick Team Liquid, and it literally is the smallest of margins, because I like Anda, but I would just go like, well, but Xmithy is here, and he's probably just like that enough of a difference to make in this kind of head-to-head make your team better there. So, but yeah, that's that. Well, thank you, Globus, for joining me in this adventure of talking about every single team and going through all of this. It's been a blast, and I look forward to this LCS split so much. It's gonna be great.
It's gonna be awesome, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything you want to say to end off the show? Do you have anything to plug, your Twitter account or something?
No. You know what? My Twitter account is not exactly great source of information for League fans. I just hope that people enjoyed this, and you know, if you do, just beg Johnny to have me back for some other topics, and I can fight with him as to why losing Jensen is huge. We can argue that for another hour.
Yeah, we can do that. All right, thanks. All right, that's it. Thank you very much for watching the 2019 Spring LCS Preview Series. What do you think? What's your tier list look like? How is it different from ours? Do you think Globus is insane for having Cloud9 out of the playoffs? Because, like, the dive has them top 2, never mind out of the playoff. I think it's insane. I think he's crazy. But let me know what your tier list likes. I'd love to see them and chat about them. And if you think any part of what we said is dumb, I'd still like to hear. Of course, if you missed the last video, there's a Team Liquid one. It's a whole playlist, so if you missed any of the team's videos, you can see them. You can follow on the different social media stuff. You can also subscribe. Thank you very much. Let's get hyped. Let's get ready for the LCS season. I am so ready and excited to watch if we're right and how it goes. Cheers.